Okay, so I'm gonna set up my other phone so I can stream Facebook. So we will be streaming both Facebook and YouTube at the same time. Um, I'm gonna set this up here. Okay, I'm gonna kick in both of these at the same time. I'm starting my live video also on Facebook as well. So, okay, now we're on the business page on Facebook and we are live on YouTube at the same time. Today I had to break the bank and go out and actually purchase a new S10. It's better for videoing quality. It's better for vlogging, things of that nature. And I've got my old S9 um, that I can record with on Facebook as well. So I'm running both of them at the same time. If you think anybody could benefit from watching this video, reversing insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, um, and increasing your insulin sensitivity and kind of going over some different options and a little bit of a scenario and situation that I'm currently helping somebody deal with right now. And if they should so choose to let you know that the person I'm talking about is here, um, that's up to them. And you'll probably figure that out in the comment section. So, a little situation popped up recently where somebody had mentioned that they were they were consistently seeing numbers increase on their glucose levels in a fasted state. So all I could think about was what could be going on here. If you think about being in a fasted state, typically your normal numbers, hi Steph, your normal numbers would sit under 100. If you're in a 12 to 14 hour fasted state, when you go into the doctor, typically they want to see 100 or less. Now, they've seen some numbers higher. When I went into my last appointment, I proved a point to them by over consuming saturated fats and food before I went in, just hours before I went in. And what happened was that actually brought down my numbers on my score. So my my triglycerides were high because I had food ingested just hours before. It didn't have time to bring my triglycerides down, but my fasting numbers. So there's a couple different ways you can look at this. In a fasted state, you want less than 100 on your glucose. This person came forward and said, "Look, my numbers are abnormally high. Something's going on here. I don't know what it is. Let's look at this." And they will attest to this. I immediately thought, wait a second. One of the first indications of high blood sugar is not, I keep saying fasting insulin, I mean fasting lab results, is elevated blood sugars. When you have elevated blood sugars in a fasted state, it simply indicates one of the first signs of insulin resistance. It's one of the things that I'm triggered the quickest with somebody because it's very serious. If you go in a fasted state, a good solid 12 to 14 hours before you get your labs checked, you would typically see numbers under 100. When I go in and I get my fasting results done, my numbers are right at 88, 87, 86. Those are ideal fasting glucose numbers. You don't want anything higher than 100. Now, when somebody typically has elevated glucose, let's just say, for instance, the scenario is 160 to 200 or above. This person got like 212, they got like 160, checked throughout the day, and ketones were still elevated, not super elevated, like 1.4, with a flat fasting blood glucose of 160, normally you don't see those numbers. Normally on a ketogenic diet, when you check and you see that you've got 160 blood glucose, you don't get that kind of ketone reading. So automatically, when I see something that's 1.3, 1.4 ketone or millimolars on your meter, but I'm also seeing 160 glucose, that's a huge red flag for me. I would normally think, oh, maybe they ate something, or maybe they're stressed out if their ketone numbers are low. But that's not the case here. It still was an opportunity for ketone numbers to stay kind of elevated slightly. 1.3, 1.4 are really good numbers. I would never be trying to force myself into something higher than that unless it came naturally. A lot of people force themselves to be 2.0 millimolar and above, and they force themselves into this realization that, or they create this realism that they want super high ketones, and that's not what any of this is about. It's having good nutritional ketone numbers and low blood sugar, because when you do that, your body's typically becoming very efficient at learning how to use the ketones and stuff that are there as fuel, and not so much having super high blood sugar numbers that are going to mess with you and affect your numbers. So the numbers I seen were 160 something and 1.3 millimolar. That's not okay. That's a huge red flag to me, because I'm like, that's insulin resistance. You've got some kind of diabetic condition. This is either beginning to be an onset of a diabetic condition, or you're already there. And little did I know, by the time we talked and kind of went back and forth for a few days, the doctor actually called back with the new updated lab results, and they were actually considered a diabetic. It's something like 8 point something A1C, when just 6 months prior or something like that, the numbers were 5.2 or something of that nature, and they were completely fine. Now, how do we fix this? Now, there's a couple different ways we can look at it. A lot of people start consuming fibrous foods and stuff like that, fibrous greens, and it does help bring those fasting or your blood sugar levels down in a more consistent level, because that fiber helps digest different things that you and it and they say it produces motility. Now, you guys have to understand, I have to cover this from two different spectrums here. I promote a carnivorous diet and I promote a ketogenic diet. I don't specifically pinpoint one and say one's better than the other, unless you really have some kind of like autoimmune condition. I wholeheartedly believe a carnivorous diet is by far superior for people with autoimmune conditions, just for the simple fact that you're not feeding those things that keep the autoimmune inflammatory very high. Um, well, Mike, let's look at this here. Carnivorous does not equal just low blood sugar because you're on a carnivorous diet. There's also something a carnivorous diet equals as well. Not only is it low blood sugar, it's also low ketones for the majority of people. The majority of people that we follow here, they're not in it for ketones. They're in it for the anti-inflammatory effect, the low blood sugar, the very CRP reducing marker-wise when it comes to a carnivorous diet. They're not so much focused on ketones, but if you are focused on ketones and you are a person that wants to attribute good ketone levels and low blood sugar levels, the chances are on a carnivorous diet, that's not something that's going to happen for you. So if you're into that mentality state, or that mentality awakening state of being in a good form of ketosis on a ketogenic diet, you're not going to achieve that on a carnivorous diet. So there are some things that a ketogenic diet will help focus and work on that a carnivorous diet's not going to. So yes, a carnivorous diet will help reverse insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, but do you want more out of your diet than that? Are you Do you want that awakening state, that brain function, that switch of a different fuel type? Then you would get that from a ketogenic diet. But on a carnivorous diet, you're going to be more stable. You're going to have less flare ups. If you make a mistake, the reaction to, or if you make an oopsie, like the keto or carnivore community likes to call it, me, I just call it being an adult and making a different decision food choice wise. Your recovery on a carnivorous diet is substantially better. You don't have those headaches, those withdrawals, the lethargy feeling and stuff like that. It's a more natural reaction to stabilizing and getting back on track. Where on a ketogenic diet, you have high blood sugar or sorry, high ketones, and you disrupt that and you go to eat something that may not be of your standard typical diet, something with carbs or sugar, all of a sudden you've got a headache for 3 days, you're rebounding, you're trying to come back. There's a number of things. So, do I think a carnivore diet is more stable for medical conditions and for making other choices outside of carnivory or ketogenics? Absolutely, 1000%. I think being on a carnivorous diet is a way to stay on track better. If you like meat, if you like fat, if you like protein, if you like, these types of things with very little movement for other things, then yes, you're you're going to be substantially better than somebody on a ketogenic diet. But if you're on a ketogenic diet and you want variety and fiber and roughage and all these other things that you so wholeheartedly believe in, this might actually work for some forms of insulin resistance better. And I do believe there are different types that we may not even have discovered yet. I'm not going to sit here and say that you have to have fiber. Like if we go here, I'll go Google Chrome and just look at the generic. Look at what Dr. Google says. All right. 15 ways to lower blood sugar levels naturally. And a lot of them are things that we have already seen that don't necessarily work the best for us. One of them, it talks about eating high fiber or eating fibrous foods. That may work for some people, actually. But if you're a person that is consuming artificial sweeteners, I don't care what myths you've heard from what keto group. I don't care what you think you know or you don't know. I don't care about what your grandma has told you or your aunts told you. I don't care about none of that stuff. This is reality here. This is not your my feelings are on my sleeve show and I need to tailor to your feelings, so I want you to listen to what I have to say here. There are a lot of people that are under the impression that the ketone drinks, the artificial sweeteners and stuff like that, the erythritols, the stevias, the monk fruits don't affect everybody. You're wrong. The statistics may show that the majority of people don't get blood sugar rises from them. But the one thing that we never talk about with any of this is the fact that just because you don't get a blood sugar rise doesn't mean that you can't trigger insulin in some form chronically over and over and over and over again. So the more that I see things, the more I want to speak out about it, because this is going to make your keto doctors look silly. This is going to make your mainstream social media stars that you so wholeheartedly follow like the best groupie that you ever that's ever followed somebody. When you eat sweet treats, just because they are not blood sugar or they are blood sugar friendly, does not mean that they're not going to mess with your insulin. So what ends up happening? You want to pick up a food and you want to put it to your mouth. You pick up. We'll talk about cholesterol in another segment. This I specifically want to hit on insulin and blood sugar. So good question. We will cover that maybe at the end of this, or maybe I'll come back. Maybe I'll do a live tomorrow and talk about that specifically, just cholesterol. When you eat that sweet food, before you even pick up that food or that sugary drink or that diet soda or whatever it may be, your body's already cephalically preparing for what's about to be ingested. It knows that it needs a certain amount of insulin to start being excreted to prepare for ingestion of food. So the fact that you're picking up something and you're putting it to your mouth and you already know that it's sweet, your brain is a lot smarter than you are. Your brain, your hormones, the things that say, it's not that it's smarter than you are. It already starts to prepare a process for something that's going on. It says, we need to start making insulin mobile. We need to start doing something here because this dude's about to eat something sweet. That dopamine sensation wakes up in the brain and it starts to switch on. And it says, well, You're about to make me very, very happy right now. And I'm going to have to move whatever it is that you're putting in my body around right now. So when the dopamine sensation switches on, it's like a crackhead taking a hit of Coke. I mean, it's not the exact same thing, but just bear with me here analogy wise. And if your feelings get hurt because I'm referencing that, then you'll have to go figure yourself out somewhere else because it's not going to be here. Now, when you take that hit of crack or that Coke or whatever it is, all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah. Well, it's the same thing your brain's going through when you're about to put something sweet in your mouth. That pleasure sensation, that, hi, Kim, that sensation of you about to reward yourself triggers an enzymatic process that starts happening inside the stomach. And when that process starts moving, the body starts doing all these different things. It's preparing for food, regardless if it's artificial sweetener, regardless if it has a zero glycemic index, regardless if it's your stevia, your erythritol, your monk fruit, your insulin still has to play a factor here. And this is what we forget on all the sweet treat groups and all the doctors saying this and Barry says that and Berg says this and oh, this is safe and that. It still doesn't matter. There are other hormones that get triggered and they get affected and they get played with over and over and over again. And this is what people don't talk about. So just because your blood sugar doesn't rise doesn't mean your insulin can't play, your dopamine. These are things that get moved around and taxed in ways that we normally don't even pay attention to. Because the number one factor in any of this here is how the hormone chemical signaling and talking going back and forth makes things move along and happen. Inputs and outputs. So with you picking up something sweet, ooh, wow, this is going to be great. Dopamine being released, enzymatic response inside the stomach, all of a sudden insulin's getting moved around. You're taxing your insulin because you think you're eating something that's not going to affect you as a treat to yourself. Well, how are you treating yourself? If you know and you're okay with your insulin being taxed when it's a fasting period time or a period where you don't want it being taxed, then why are you putting something in your mouth that's going to do that? Because Dr. So-and-so said your blood sugar is not going to be affected by stevia, or because Sarah's Keto Corner over there says that it's okay to have a fat bomb in your fasted state because fat doesn't tax your insulin levels. Well, but the sweetness in the fat that you just made your fat bombs. True story. This is what a girl was telling another girl on a group that I was in. Oh, you should be able to have a fat bomb. It's not going to do anything to your blood sugar or mess with your insulin. It's just fat. It doesn't trigger insulin. What is in the product? Are you putting stevia in it? Are you putting monk fruit in it? Are you putting erythritol in it? The zero glycemic sugar? What are you doing? You're eating food. You're preparing food. You're putting it in your mouth. The action alone, cephalically, triggers insulin to be released. That's why it's called a cephalic insulin response. Who talks about that? Nobody talks about that. Anytime you eat and put food in your mouth, I don't care who you are, your body has to prepare for food. It's a pleasure. It's something that naturally happens. So we constantly berate and talk on these keto groups and everything else about how this happens and that happens. But the one thing we forget about is insulin being released is a very natural process based on what you're about to ingest. The sweeter it is, the more it pleasures you, the more reactions are going to happen. So if you're a type 2 diabetic, if you're somebody that's in a fasted state, if you're listening to Sarah from the other keto group that's telling you, hey, if you eat that fat bomb, you're okay because it's just a zero glycemic stevia and it's just fat, you could go ahead and eat that. What do you have to do? What did we just talk about? We talked about the cephalic insulin response. It's a very natural process that happens inside the body. You don't think your body's going to prepare for the calories that you're about to ingest? The sweetness, the pleasure sensation of you giving yourself a treat? What are you treating yourself for? What have you done to give yourself a treat? I love how as adults we give ourselves these names and stuff, and we put ourselves in this little box like a kid that's done something good, and we're rewarding ourselves with a fat bomb because it's a treat to ourselves. What did you do seriously that much as an adult where you deserve to give yourself a treat? You're eating damn food. You're not treating yourself. You're sorry. You have no self-control, or you know that you've got to reverse something and you're not taking the steps to do it just because you have to give yourself a treat. Who needs a treat? I don't need a treat. I might have a little dessert because I just feel like having it, but I don't need a treat. We keep giving ourselves these little names and titles and categories and stuff like that to make ourselves feel good about what we're doing. If you're in a fasted state, you know what? I don't even do it correctly sometimes. I like a little bone broth, but that's just because I choose to do it that way. If you really are trying to reverse insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes and you are doing periods of fasting, close your mouth and don't put food in it. Drink some water. Pinch a little salt, put it in your water or something like that until you're ready to eat. These are steps to start reversing insulin resistance. One of the first things that they tell you now that was never there before to reverse insulin resistance in high fasting blood sugar numbers. One of the first things they tell you on the internet now that never said it before was lower your carbs, lower your sugar. That's what it tells you now. It never said that stuff on the internet before. They would never admit to reversing insulin resistance in type 2 diabetes or high fasting blood glucose. They never had that on the internet before as lowering your carbs. You know when I noticed a lot of this started coming up? When the ADA for the CEO for the American Diabetes Association started speaking up about how she stays off of her meds and her pills. That's how. When she started to speak up and she started to come back forward and she said, you know what, I cannot follow the American Diabetes Association recommendations to control my insulin or my blood sugar. I'm off almost all pills, no insulin. She still does use some, but very, very little. Multiple pills, she said, by following a low carb diet. But do you think all these sweet treats and stuff like that are going to help you at all? No, they're not going to help anything. If you have type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, if you're predominantly fat around the midsection and you're trying to change all that, that's the first sign of insulin resistance. High fasting blood glucose. Predominantly chunky around the midsection, but everywhere else in your body. I have insulin resistance. My arms and my legs and stuff, everything else is slimmed down, but my midsection is holding the bulk of my weight. I have insulin resistance. That is one of the number one signs of it. The body type. One thing that Berg did get right was when he started talking about different hormone imbalances and how it affects different people's weight, how they carry their weight. There was something huge about what he said. He was onto that early on, even though I could care less about the guy. He's just another one of those mainstream social butterfly doctors to me. He was right about that. How your hormones are imbalanced reflects the type of body type that you have. Somebody that carries a majority of their weight around their midsection, I've noticed they're very insulin resistant. And their glucose numbers a lot of times are out of whack. I'm just fortunate enough for me that that's not the case. So intermittent fasting, prolonged periods, longer and longer and longer. Don't drink your ketone drinks. Please don't drink your ketone drinks. I mean, what do they do? You can look at somebody that drinks ketone drinks or they swear by it. I think she's laughing because of me being, how I could be funny sometimes and sometimes I'm serious. It's not that anything's real funny. I know Steph. Steph's a good person. She's on my actual keto groups and stuff like that. What I want to point out here the most is the fact that people don't have control of themselves. You want to reverse insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. You need to take the precautions to do so. The ketone drinks, the fat bombs, the artificial sweeteners and stuff like that don't help any of that. You're trying to become more sensitive to the insulin that you produce so you can use it and utilize it correctly. What does insulin do? Insulin does a number of things, but the two main factors that I'm focused on tonight, what does it do? It tells the brain, I've had enough. Let's shut it down. You don't need to really eat right now. And it also tells the fat cells, or your cells, let's open up and expand so we can take in food. But if you're eating things constantly that are taxing dopamine, enzymatic process, and insulin levels, how are you ever going to become sensitive to the very insulin that you're supposed to be utilizing, that's supposed to be sending messages throughout the body? If you're if you're constantly trying to find a way to reward yourself when you're not supposed to be finding a way to reward yourself, why don't you start thinking about things as more of a reward yourself, that meal that you go out with your husband and you sit down, or your girlfriend or your significant other or your family, and you're sitting down and you're eating to a real nice clean meal, and it's a little bit more expensive, um, that would be a reward to me. But to think um, that I'm rewarding myself by making a fat bomb that's pumped full of processed nuts, processed coconut oil, and squeezed full of stevia just because I want to treat myself or reward myself. I don't. To me, that's not the right mindset. I might call it a treat or something like that, but even at that, maybe I shouldn't call it that. Maybe I should literally call it what it is. It's a dessert. This was my dessert tonight. I had a couple almond butter fat bombs. Instead of the mind process of thinking this is a treat, this is a reward, or something like that. If you want to really reverse insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, you need to start looking at the snake diet guy. As much as I'm not on board with him and the fanatical stuff, the way he does things. Fasting has to be the best, most chronic, important way to do anything with reversing almost any condition. Circa 1900 and before that, that's what they did to heal people. When they found out somebody had diabetes or a medical condition or something like that, they turned to fasting, because fasting was the natural way for your body to start destroying any kind of bad cell, foreign cell, bacteria, whatever it was, and process it out of the body. The good cells would eat the bad cells. Or you would, skin tags and psoriasis, stuff like that. I noticed on me, they're gone. I have like one little skin tag left. I have one skin tag left right here. I used to have them kind of all over my neck. The more I would fast, the longer I would fast, the more they would fall off. I would have psoriasis on my forearms and stuff on both of my forearms. It's completely gone. All that was from forms of fasting. I think dry fasting is a very good thing, but you have to be an experienced faster. So somebody asked a question on Facebook, what do I think about dry fasting? I think dry fasting is a phenomenal thing to do. But if you're not a seasoned faster, if you do not know what you're doing, it is not something that I would consider even attempting until you've done enough regular fasting. I cannot express how I would not like somebody to try that enough until you've done. And when I say regular fasting, I mean periods of 24 hours or more, over and over and over again, leading into like 36 to 48. Yes, people with slower metabolisms really need to focus on minimizing the amount of insulin spikes and things that they ingest to awaken different types of hormones and stuff of that nature. It's very, very important when you start dealing with something like type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, things of this nature, that you need to understand the principles behind fasting. And one of the things that I preach the most is somebody commented on my video, my potassium video, on how you could be deficient on things on a carnivorous diet and actually end up in the hospital. That Sean Baker, Paul Saladino, Frank Tufano, these other people out here don't talk about sometimes is the fact that they don't eat enough. On a carnivorous diet, a lot of people undereat. And the thing that they have to be focused the most on is the fact that you need to eat. And it's something that even if you have to be a little bit more active during the day to entice some more ingestion of good carnivory food, potassium and sodium are so critical. I have so many people that start a carnivorous diet, and a month into it, 2 months into it, 3 months into it, I'm cramping. Are you doing what you're supposed to do? Who told you to start a carnivore diet and undereat? Nobody did. Your mama didn't do it. I didn't do it. Bart K didn't do it. They want you to eat. Eat to a good satiety. A lot of these people try to put themselves in a box and they're like, oh, I need to eat a pound of meat. I can't eat any more than that because I'm going to gain weight. Who told you that? Nobody told you that. If you haven't experienced something, push the limits to it. If you're not gaining weight and you know that you're really, really, really low on potassium and sodium, and you still have room for food or you're hungry, eat. This is not keto. A carnivore diet has nothing to do with a ketogenic diet. And a lot of people constantly confuse the two of them all the time. A lot of people are like, well, on a carnivore diet, my ketones are low. Who said on a carnivore diet you're supposed to be focused on ketones? Nobody. Nobody did. The whole point behind a carnivorous diet is getting into foods that are more bioavailable in nutrients and allowing yourself time to heal. But a lot of people come at me with my ketone levels and this and that, and I'm cramping up and I ended up in the hospital because you're not eating enough. Because you're not eating enough, you're not salting your food. You need to do these things. This is exactly how people end up sick. This is how they end up feeling like they're deprived of nutrients. Not only are you eating good quality nutrients and meat and fat and things like this to make yourself, these are the things that nourish your body. The sodium and stuff has to be there as well. I just had somebody comment like, I'm having issues because of potassium. I'm thinking it's potassium or sodium. A lot of you don't realize that a lot of these work hand in hand. If your sodium levels are off and your potassium levels are fine, they kind of coexist with each other and work together. The cellular function of the potassium-sodium cross. So you have a cell, and I've done this 1,000. I'm a mechanic, guys. Sorry, my hands are never going to be perfect. They're all beat up and chunks of nail missing out of my hand and stuff like that. So I apologize. When I'm on video, I just go. You have a cell. There's a sodium-potassium cross. And as that cell opens and closes, it'll open one way and allow potassium in. As it pulls it in, it opens the other way to allow potassium out and allows the sodium in. And there's a cross that this is just a generic analogy. There are other people that understand it better than me. But that function has to be in sequence. It has to be timed properly. So you can eat all the meat in the world and get all the sodium that you want, or all the potassium that you want. But if you don't have enough sodium to go along with it, there's a process that happens. You can't. There's signaling that doesn't fire correctly. Your feeling and stuff nerve-wise doesn't happen correctly. The way your fast twitch and slow twitch muscles activate and deactivate, they don't happen correctly. There's a number of things. Water retention that needs to be there and it's not there. Expelling of water when your body needs to get rid of it. There's a number of things that happen. And that's just the Barney-fied way to do it, if you will. There's a lot of people that don't do these things correctly. And if you want to be on a carnivorous diet, yeah, thanks, Bart. If you want to be on a carnivorous diet, eat. Salt your food. Drink water to satiety. I keep seeing this lady popped up today and said, or somebody popped up today and said, I drink 1.5 gallons of water a day. Why? Do you know how much water's in meat? Do you know how much water's in organs? There's a lot of water there. Why are you drinking 1.5 gallons of water a day? How much sodium do you have? Well, I probably have about 2,000 milligrams of sodium. That's not enough. If you're drinking 1.5 gallons of water a day and you're getting 2,000 milligrams of sodium, sorry, Chief, you're done. You're going to flush all that sodium and stuff right back out. Why? Who told you that you have to drink 1.5 gallons of water a day and you're expecting to reverse insulin resistance and all these other things? These key factors play a role in all this. Who told you to drink 1.5 gallons? Well, I just thought because of some calculation. No. Drink water to your satiety level. Don't force yourself to do anything. Actually, I was talking to Jimmy Moore's wife back in the day, and I know some of you don't, get along or don't like Jimmy Moore, but the guy has played his role in the ketogenic and carnivorous community. He's put a lot of good information out there regardless. Regardless of the types of things that people accuse him of or see him as or whatever, he's put a lot of good information out there. And I was talking to Christine back in the day, and I said, Christine, do you think people should be drinking half their body weight in ounces of water? For some people, that would be okay if they're really, really small, because obviously you'd like to drink enough water to satiety, and that may equal half your body weight in ounces of water. But who in their right mind at 300 pounds is going to drink 150 ounces plus of water a day? I'm not. And she said, you know what, Rich, you're right. Christine went to school and kind of got educated as a nutritional therapy practitioner, and that's just a generic way of explaining somebody that understands a little bit more about food and stuff than the next person. But it's not really that great of a title anyway. Um, what I would say, what Christine said to me meant the most out of anything that when it came to water the last few years. She said, "Rich, do you know the most accurate way of gauging water was probably the old school way of doing what was it, 8 ounce glasses of water a day." She said most people find it right around that level. They might drink a large bottle of water in the morning, and then maybe one in the afternoon, and maybe one or two before they go to bed. And if you break it down, you're typically engaging based on satiety and what you want water wise naturally, and your body telling you what to drink, probably somewhere between 64 and 100 ounces of water. It's pretty normal. These people that are forcing themselves to drink a gallon and a half, 2 gallons of water per day are leaving so much room for failure because they're not increasing their potassium levels. They're not increasing their sodium levels. And a lot of times when people do that on my keto groups and stuff, I'm finding that they're flushing electrolytes right out of their body. They're trying to overindulge in this water sensation that they see other people on social media and fake fitness trainers that claim that they know something about nutrition and don't know anything, that tell them to do this half your body weight in ounces of water stuff. Who should consider going on a keto diet? Okay, so Mike, this is what I want to talk to you about. Somebody that's coming from a standard American diet, somebody that likes a lot of variety in their life, somebody that cannot be focused on organs, animal products, water, salt, somebody that cannot do that every single day is somebody that should consider a keto diet. That's who should. But if somebody has a serious enough condition, really, really, really severe type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, autoimmune conditions, things of this nature, and they're really serious about changing what they want to do, they go carnivore. The people that have had enough with keto and realizing that all the fiber and the materials and stuff that's in it don't necessarily aid, and there's a lot of anti-nutrients in it, phytates, phytoestrogens, salicylates, oxalates, things of this nature. People that don't want all the anti-nutrients because they're really trying to dig deep into the healing and stuff like that, they go carnivore. The people that want the variety and stuff and they like their greens and they want to be able to sit down and enjoy different types of foods with other people without worrying about somebody picking at the way they're eating, those types of people go keto. Or people that don't have severe metabolic conditions, those types of people would be the best on a ketogenic diet. But me myself, I don't care. I'll sit down right in the middle of my family with everybody sitting around me with 2 pounds of steak in front of me and sit there and eat it like it's nothing, just like it's a little kid eating candy. I don't care. Nobody's going to say anything to me. They know I don't care what they have to say if it was negative. So the types of people that have the biggest or the hardest time are people that came right from a standard American diet and they've just been eating fast food and whatever they want. Those are the types of people that should start with keto. But once they find out that it's not going as well for them as they would like, or maybe they're trying to achieve a higher level of health, the breakdown would be going to a carnivorous diet and moving into that. And they will more than likely see that they're getting really good results. The way that I would recommend people attacking insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, and if you think so, protein turning to sugar is a complete misconception. Gluconeogenesis is what they call it. It's a very natural, demand-driven process. If your body sees the need that it needs to make a little bit of sugar for organ function, which your organs do like a little bit of sugar, your body will naturally strip the glycerol backbone from fat, and it will create sugar from it through a very natural process, gluconeogenesis. Or it may use some proteins dietary-wise that aren't going to be used for anything else, and it will convert that. It does not start pulling from skeletal tissues and stuff like that, like people blow all over mainstream media. Oh, it's going to turn to chocolate cake in your blood. No, it's not. It's a very natural, demand-driven process that when your body knows it needs to make a little extra sugar for something, it does it. And it does it naturally. And if you're eating plenty of meat, carnivorous food, you will not have a problem with anything attacking your skeletal muscle or the muscle on your body. It's just a fake, complete misconception that people pump out all over social media, including some of the doctors that we follow. Big fat lie. And some of them, I don't care for. Um, so it's I was having a conversation about this with Dr. Joel Kahn, and Bart was in the chat with me, and I think Bart kind of got out of the conversation because he was tired of dealing with um, Mr. Kahn's conning way of doing things, and I wanted to stay in the conversation, and I'm talking to Dr. Joel Kahn, and I says, I can prove to you that this whole process you're talking about. And he was so sure. Oh my God, if you eat too much protein in one sitting, you're messing up your ketogenic diet anyway, your carnivorous diet anyway, your blood sugar is going to go through the roof. And I said, you're a liar. You're a big fat liar. You do not know what you're talking about. And I can prove it right now. And all I am is some stupid, simple mechanic that knows more about the mechanism, the mechanistic side of how this stuff happens, than some shill doctor like Dr. Joel Kahn. And he wanted me to prove him wrong. So what do? I go find 2.5 pounds of meat, cook it up, consume it live on camera, test my blood sugar before. It was 87, 88, something ballpark that. It was in the mid 80s. Let's just call it 85, just for sake of argument's sake. So I consumed 2.5 pounds of meat, 2 pounds or 2.5 pounds of meat in a 20-minute window. It's been a while. And I'm forcing myself to do this on camera, and I'm so uncomfortable while I'm doing it. So I test an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, and 12 hours just to say that I did it. An hour after, my blood sugar went up maybe 6 or 7 points. Very natural for that to happen. Anytime you eat food, you're going to get a little bit of a rise. 2 hours, maybe max 10 points. I went from like 85 to 95. 3 hours, already going back down. Right back down 92, 91. 6 hours in, back down 88. 10 hours, whatever, 12 hours, all the way back down 82, 84. Completely natural. Posted my results, shared the video with him. What does the guy do? Backs out of the conversation completely and runs for the freaking hills. Done. Out of the conversation. You can't prove the professor wrong. You can't prove Dr. Joel Kunt wrong because he couldn't explain what he couldn't know. And that's exactly what happened here. He's just done, out of the conversation completely. So what do you do with people like that spread so much bad information all over social media? And they don't have this is a doctor that paid probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to school to learn grade school information that's not even correct. How does a preschooler draw an art project for class and get an F on it? Well, he'd be the one to do it because everything that he put out was completely wrong, and then wanted to bail from the conversation completely. So these are the types of people that we deal with that put out bad information on social media and then promote vegan diets and everything else, or the anti-human diet, I should say. So fasting, glucose being high, I would promote more forms of intermittent fasting. I would promote more forms of carnivorous type food, reducing your carbs and sugar and even artificial sweeteners and stuff like that completely out of the equation as low as possible. And if you are on a ketogenic diet and you are going to get some kind of carbs from something and you need to have your vegetables, I make it the best type of vegetable that you can possibly have. Do your research, look in to see which ones have the lowest phytates, salicylates, phytoestrogens, oxalates, and try to consume that if you're going to do it. If it was me and you wanted to follow mainstream medical stuff and you're just not super comfortable with the way keto and carnivore people do things, I would be very careful with avocados. Avocados have a lot of oxalates to them. They have a lot of histamine to them in general. So if you're a person that's trying to reverse medical conditions, avocados have a lot of healthy fat, and they have some other nutrients and stuff that your body can use, but they're very high in histamine, and it's not something, I didn't mean oxalate. They're very high in histamine, and it's something that people with allergies, skin conditions, things of that nature should probably stay away from. It's one of the number one foods for people that are trying to reverse certain histamine type reactions, allergy type reactions to stay away from. Any kind of meat that's been processed or potted, just be very, very careful with those types of things. Do your homework. Do your homework. That's all you can do is just do your homework. Look, I would like to create a low histamine ketogenic diet, but with so many of the foods that have been promoted for the last 5, 6, 7 years on a keto diet, it's almost impossible to do that. There's a lot of nutrients in avocados that are beneficial, but there are also a lot of anti-nutrients in avocado, just like there isn't anything else. I mean, we could sit here and argue about this until the cows come home. And let's look real quick right here while we're on here. Worst foods for all right. Therefore, it's important to avoid the foods listed below. Worst foods for insulin resistance: sugar, sweetened beverages, trans fats, white bread, pastas, rice. Guess what those all fit in categories of? Starches, carbs, sugar. What are they telling you without even telling you? They don't have to say go on a keto diet or go on a carnivorous diet. They're already telling you right from the get go that you need to stay away from different types of sugars and carbs. Right from the very get go, from number one on the list. Sugar sweetened beverages, trans fats, white breads, pastas, rices, all the things that people want to consume. Fruit flavored yogurts. What are they trying to tell you? Sugars, even from fruits, don't need to be in your diet if you're trying to reverse certain types of insulin resistances. Flavored coffee drinks, honey, agave, nectar, maple syrup, dried fruits. These are all foods that vegans, fruitarians, standard American medical doctors, probably your primary care, tells you that you should be able to have because they're natural. But what is the new, over the last year or two, what are the new types of things that they say to stay away from because they realize that it's not doing anything good for you? The very natural foods that they used to tell you, stay away from them. Pasta, rice, bread, fruits, flavored coffee drinks. That includes your freaking sweetened stevia bulletproof coffees and all that other stuff. I mean, I like one every once in a while. I'm not going to lie to you, but I do not have them every single day. I might have once every 3 or 4 weeks. If anything, I have some black coffee with cream in it, and that's it. Every once in a while, I might like something sweeter. I might get on a kick where I do a cooking video for like a week or two where I show people how to make these things, but I specify these are not to be abused. These are really not foods that you would really want to consume anyway. These are just as a dessert, or this is just something different. Um, Mary said, "Really? About the avocados? I didn't know that. Thank you. Yes, absolutely." Um, I have a neighbor with histamine issues, not so much fun for her. Exactly. You have to look at all these things from a. You can't zoom in on one thing because if you zoom in on one thing, you miss so much else that's going on around you. You have to look at things from a bird's eye view. You need to create your own menu based on your condition. You are responsible for your health. There's nobody on social media that's responsible for that. But what they can do is they can knock the tennis ball over into your court so you can play with it a little bit, and then they might throw a bone or something like that. You might be able to pick it up and do something with it. And that's where I'm going with this. I don't have all the answers for everything, and what I'm telling you right now may not work for every single person that listens. They might have to go a different approach. But what I'm telling you right now is all these things that I've mentioned, even including your keto friendly sweeteners and all this other stuff, it's all junk. These ketone products. How many people here have seen people consume ketone products and then test their ketones? Um, More on benefits of keto. Uh, all I could say is a ketogenic diet is very good for increasing your ketone. This is the only thing that I'm going to say about keto, to be honest with you. The benefits of a keto. What did I find out? I was able to have a little bit more variety on a ketogenic diet. Um, I was able to consistently make meals that I could switch around and would make other people around me that were eating dinner with me happy and not realize that they were actually eating a keto balanced meal. Um, what I liked the most about being on keto was the fact that I felt like my brain was just really alive and on fire. I mean, I could focus on so many different things at one time. That's the gist of what I felt on a ketogenic diet. That's the gist of it. Outside of that, I eventually got to a point where I wasn't getting any more results and I kind of fell off for a little bit. Like, not fell off as in fell off food wise, but I fell off to the point where I was just flat planed. Nothing was really increasing. Now, I got back to fasting and carnivorous food, and it seems to make me feel a lot better. Not so much brain woke, but better. And I think that's the important thing is people have to realize that each one of these things affect us differently. There may be a camp that says don't ever do keto, and there may be a camp that says don't ever do carnivore. But there's definitely a camp that sits in between and says they both can be used simultaneously, or they both can be used based on a condition that you have, what affects you the most. So the benefits of a ketogenic diet are exactly what I just covered. Carnivory is completely different, though. The benefits of a carnivore diet engulf all that. It just engulfs all that whole entire spectrum and then some. So if you're really wanting to reverse even further and heal even further, I think a carnivorous diet is the most important because what is everything made up in your body? Collagen, vitamins, amino acids, fatty acids. Where do you get the bulk of all that from? In bioavailable forms. I'm talking heme iron, DHA, EPA, vitamin, all the whole vitamin spectrum, even vitamin D, vitamin C. You get that from carnivore diet in the highest spectrum. So that's why I think so many people, joint wise, hair wise, me lost cause. My hair was kind of back here when I started, but now I've got hair growing all the way up here. But it's so thin, it may take years for a lot of that hair to come back in like I want it to. So I'm gonna be hopeful, but that didn't start really until I started getting more into carnivory. Carnivore is amazing for me. Been 8 weeks. I feel like superwoman. Sleep is super deep. Exactly. Carnivore is just an amazing thing for people to deal with, especially with insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, things of that nature. It's just people can't get past the standard talk of how it's bad on your cholesterol and stuff. I'll touch a little bit on that right now, and then the Facebook. This you guys over here on this side, you guys are about to die. The phone's dying, and I don't have a charger over here. So, guys, get off of here. Switch over to YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here tonight. Thank you. I'm going to continue on the YouTube channel. I'm sorry to cut it short. This was the old phone, but I wanted to give you guys something that didn't have YouTube. If you don't have YouTube, download it. It's another way that you can get a hold of me better than on Facebook. I'm starting to kind of get away from Facebook more and more just for the simple fact that not so many people get so involved anymore. It's so boring on Facebook now. You have too many people sitting back, not saying anything, not communicating, not helping. And on YouTube, it's like people are ready to help. I mean, they're really commenting, helping each other, giving suggestions, arguing it out. You just don't have that on Facebook anymore. It's starting to fall apart. So I'm going to get off of here because this phone is dying. It's probably got like 1-2%. It's going to die right now. And get over to the YouTube channel, The Keto Mechanic Black Sheep. The Keto Mechanic Black Sheep. Take care, guys. So I had to get off Facebook just for the simple fact this phone's gonna die, and I hate the phone dying in the middle of stuff, and then I feel like a jerk because I didn't warn people. Um, Anyhow, what we need to focus the most on here is the elimination of inflammatory foods and trying to reduce that blood sugar as much as possible. And if you practice forms of fasting enough and keeping your carbs low enough over and over and over again, your body starts to learn to become sensitive to the insulin and the blood sugar, how your body functions and uses it. Let's just leave how the explanation and how and what it does. Um, for another video. But right now, just so your body can utilize and do what it's supposed to do as a vessel that you've been given the opportunity to live in and operate in after years of abuse, is fasting and the most nutrient dense bioavailable foods that you possibly can have is what's going to heal this. And I mean, you could scroll forever on this, and WebMD, insulin resistance diet, how to use diet to prevent diabetes. Again, every one of insulin resistance, diabetes, the best diet for you will depend on your responsiveness to the diet. For individuals who are insulin resistant, eating more fats than carbs. See, this is another thing too. Endocrine Web. This is www.endocrineweb.com. Diabetes, and that's one of the first things that they. Uh, David Ludwig, MD, PhD, Christopher Gardner, PhD, Carolyn Apovian, MD, um, lose weight any way you like. But to avoid regaining the weight, you'll need to know how your body responds to insulin. Insulin is the factor to everything. Wondering about your diet, carbs versus fats, the answer to which diet is better for weight loss and maintenance, low fat or low carbohydrate, is getting clearer. In the Framingham State Food Study, David Ludwig, MD, PhD, professor of Department of Nutrition at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and director of the New Balance Foundation Obesity Prevention. Rather than look at the impact of these foods, Dr. Ludwig and his research team considered the problem based on how the body metabolizes macronutrients, carbohydrates, and fat by asking, are all calories created equally? According to the study results, not always, or at least not for everyone. The type of calories being consumed have a clear effect on the number of calories being burned. Dr. Ludwig told Endocrine Web somewhere. I know a lot of people talk trash about him, but I'm just reading what this guy's saying. So for those of you that are on edge, like, why are you reading his stuff? Just listen. According to their findings, the key to glucose management is caloric expenditure in some individuals. Not all, in some individuals. Most people cannot focus on calories in versus calories out. It does not work for them. You cannot just say, well, I'll do more and eat less and it's going to affect me appropriately, because that does not happen. Yes, you can eat cheese on a carnivorous diet, but it's very hard to get natural, non-processed cheese, especially in raw form, unless you're getting it right from a farmer, because a lot of states won't allow you to sell it. You have to be careful with cheese, though, because cheese is a dairy product and it's also very high in histamine. So if you have allergies, if you have skin conditions, things of this nature that you're trying to reverse, cheese, dairy products in general, you have to minimize or not consume at all. Insulin resistance suggests reducing your carbs. Big, fat, bold title right across it. Framingham study state food safety suggests that more fats and less carbohydrates could help people with insulin sensitivity and type 2 diabetes to maintain successful weight loss better. The study relies on the carbohydrate insulin model, CIM, of obesity, which Dr. Ludwig and his team pioneered to assess the total energy expenditure of different food types. This study demonstrates the high glycemic eating patterns resulting from a diet high in processed carbohydrates, white bread, white pasta, white rice, sugar, directs the body to store more calories as fat rather than using the energy to support body functions. This switch from burning to storing calories occurs when the two metabolic hormones, insulin and glucagon, become unbalanced, causing excess insulin, increased hunger, and slowed metabolism. So two things that you just took from that study are what you need to look for. If you're insulin resistant, type 2 diabetic, carry most of your weight around your midsection, glucagon and insulin levels. You need to see what the relationship between those two are. So maybe that will be the next video. I like well, cheese is a very processed cheese. So if you're looking at the natural form of carnivory, cheese would not be something that occurs in nature or naturally without having to process it. So we know that cheese is a very highly processed. Um, it has to be handled. It has to be put in things and moved around in order to create something. So um, cheese is a carnivore food, hard block cheese especially, but it is not the ideal carnivore food. A lot of carnivores that are really, 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 really strict don't even promote cheese. They say eat meat, eat organs, salt your food, and drink water. Those are like the super, super hardcore dogmatic carnivores that are just like, there's a lion. That's why I think Michaela Peterson started calling it the lion diet, because does a lion eat cheese in the wild? No, he doesn't. It's processed. It's not a natural carnivore food. But it is, to me, it's okay. Some people even do coffee, cream. Cream is a very highly processed product as well. They have to add stuff to it to extend its shelf life, and especially the different types of heavy cream that have carrageenan in it, the derivative of seaweed, which can cause some inflammation in women. Women seem to be responsive to the carrageenan that's in heavy whipping cream, so that's another thing that's often thrown around. Um, the liver pills, a lot of people are saying they're getting decent results from the liver pills. I have the kidney formula because I want a little bit extra. Uh, what is it? DEA, not DEA, DHA, or what is it called again? It's the DH. It's not DH. Now I forget what the. Now I'm gonna have to go back and look. It's in the kidney formula. It helps break down histamine types because I do have histamine reactions to things. Diamine oxidase, DAO. That's what I meant to say. DAO. There is some DAO in the kidney formula, and the diamine oxidase. You can actually buy a product called what is it? Umbrelix. It's like 10,000 HDU of DAO. Uh, yeah, I mean, you have to. There is some truth to keeping your calories up, but it's not the end all be all. You know, a lot of people. There's a couple people that actually follow me now that have hit their goal weight, and they're having problems keeping the weight on carnivore. So they're having to add some other things like raw honey or something like that in sometimes just to kind of keep some of that weight, so they're not losing it all. So that is what you're saying, Mike. Is definitely a lot of people have that problem. Not a lot of people, but there are quite a few people that do have that problem once they get down. Me, let's look at dietdoctor.com. I can make you fat. Actually, I can make anybody fat. How? I simply prescribe insulin injections. Giving people extra insulin and inevitably leads to weight gain. I was just talking about this with a doctor, like just a couple weeks ago, online, and the guy was trying to make me out to be a fool. And look, here it is, right here on Diet Doctor. Um, I was telling him, why would you prescribe a type 2 diabetic more insulin when they already have insulin that they can't do anything with? I mean, I get that there's a reason for it, but to the extent of what you do and the pills and statins and stuff that you push, all you're trying to do is you're trying to keep them sick so they keep coming back for more pills and more insulin. Why wouldn't you focus on reducing the amount of glycemic foods that they eat to low and allowing them to work and become sensitive to the insulin so they can use it and utilize it correctly, rather than just giving them more insulin on top of what they already got? See them, look at them, make a recommendations. If you have to push them to a nutritionist that can help them pick lower glycemic foods, healthier foods, then do so. But the first thing that you do is talk about statins, metformin, insulin injections. I mean, it's ridiculous. It says right here, here's a startling truth. I can make you fat. Actually, I can make anybody fat. How? I simply prescribe insulin injections. Giving people extra insulin inevitably leads to the weight gain. In type 1 diabetes, when insulin levels are extremely low, patients lose weight no matter how many calories they eat. Give insulin, gain weight. No insulin, lose weight, even to the point of death. The implication is clear. Insulin causes weight gain. Knowing this is crucial because if insulin causes weight gain, then losing weight depends on lowering insulin. But instead, we've been told to focus obsessively on calories. The standard failed weight loss advice is to restrict a few calories every day by reducing dietary fat and eating multiple times per day. This does not lower insulin much since dietary fat has little insulin effect and eating frequently constantly stimulates insulin secretion. This caloric reduction as primary advice has an estimated failure rate of 99.5%. So if you have tried caloric restriction to lose weight and failed, understand this. You were expected to fail. How many times do you guys hear me say that in my videos? How many times have I repeated that over and over and over again? When you eat foods that secrete insulin, you are putting your body into a storage mode. What do you think bodybuilders do when they're trying to shuttle nutrients and stuff around and bulk up in their off season and get nice and juicy fat and then start cutting and putting on more muscle and stuff again? They use insulin. They purposely inject insulin. That's one of the main things that they do to put weight on, to shuttle hormones around and make different processes and stuff happen. They purposely inject insulin. So here's the situation. Medicine tells you that obesity is a caloric balance and that you should eat less and move more. Medicine tells you to eat a low-fat diet and eat 10 times a day. This advice fails virtually everybody. When you fail, medicine tells you it's your fault for not being or they have typo in the article. I don't know if they know that or not. It's your fault for not being able to stick to the advice. Our advice was good. Medicine tells you you were just a failure, which that's completely true. It's when it comes down to it, it's what you eat and it's when you eat and it's how your body reacts to the food that you eat. It's as simple as that. If you have a medical condition, you need to learn what types of foods exacerbate that medical condition. If you want to reduce the amount of blood sugar you have in your system, if you want to reduce the amount of insulin that you secrete in order to reverse type 2 diabetes and in order to reverse insulin sensitive or resistance and the fat around your midsection, you must reduce the foods that increase those levels. Right? They say eat less, do more. That will cause you to lose weight. We know that didn't happen. But reality is, you need to reduce the things that put the weight on, that cause your body to go into some kind of storage mode. And that is sugars, carbohydrates, starches, things of that nature. That's where we're at with this. So what diet is the lowest in all of those things? What diet helps you become more insulin sensitive? What diet reduces the amount of carbs, starches, and sugars the most? If you can answer that question, you can help anybody reverse those types of conditions. I'm not saying literally every single person. There are special circumstances out there, but the majority of people. What diet does all that? I'll tell you the number 2 diet. That's a ketogenic diet. We all know that. It works to an extent. But the number 1 diet is carnivore. The carnivore diet, by far, eliminates almost every single inflammatory property that causes those types of things to get worse. It's hands down the best thing that you can do for almost any kind of medical condition. I'm not telling every single person out there to do it, but I'm saying if you have an autoimmune condition, if you have a severe metabolic condition or any kind of metabolic condition, which we almost all possibly do, if you have the majority of your weight around your midsection, if you're insulin resistant because of all that weight around your midsection, but everything else is pretty proportionate and not so much, doesn't have a lot of adipose tissue on it. When I say adipose tissue, I mean fatty deposits. Leo, that the whole misconception about carnivore making gout worse or something like, it's a complete misconception. Gout, if you can eat like a higher level of fat carnivore and not get into the super high protein level, say more tallows, more marrow, more fatty cuts of beef and stuff like that, and you can get some kind of ketone rise. I'm saying something, zero point 0.5, zero point 0.6, zero point 0.7, which me on a carnivore diet, I'm typically between zero point 0.5 and like 1.0. Some people don't have that result like I do. Some people are all the way down 0.2, zero point 0.3. Um, so when you have an issue with gout, some people swear that carnivore makes it worse. No, by all means, if you know 100% sure eating red meat makes your gout worse, then cut it out. You know, none of us are perfect with the way we see things, explain things, but I'm on a mission here. And I've seen more people with gout and inflammatory conditions go on a carnivore diet and reverse those conditions than people that come to me and say, well, you told me carnivore was better and my gout's worse. No, not at all. It's the exact opposite, actually. When you can produce any kind of ketone level in your body at all, and you can reduce your blood sugars way, 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 way down, and you actually add in organ meats once or twice a week, say a serving of liver once or twice a week, that is all the vitamin C you need for the entire week. Just eating one, Dr. Annette Bosworth, she even talked about that. Liver has enough vitamin C for one serving for the entire week. And if you reduce your blood sugars as much as possible, as low as possible, you don't have that competition with vitamin C. So when you are eating things like liver and organs, your body loves to absorb those nutrients because there's nothing trying to push vitamin C out of the way. Vitamin C is the precursor, they say, to protecting you from gout flare ups. But that's not the only thing that it does. It actually strengthens the capillaries. Um, it supports the supporting layer of the capillaries. And when you start producing ketones, even on a carnivorous diet, you can produce ketones. The precursor to the HLR-P3 protein that causes getting tongue tied. The HLR, let me type that up. I think I'm saying it right. There's a protein source that's the main precursor for gout, and it's the HLR-P3 protein gout. NLRP. That's what it is. It's not H, it's NLRP3 protein for gout. That's what it is. I knew I was saying it wrong. It didn't sound right. So the NLRP3 protein is the main protein that spurs the gout flare up. And the NLRP3 protein can be combated with beta hydroxybutyrate, the ketone that's most present on most ketogenic diets, that's the most abundant inside your system. So if you're a carnivore and you can actually produce ketones, the beta hydroxybutyrate will fight the NLRP3 protein to kind of keep that gout flare up and allow for would allow for vitamin C to actually support the capillaries like it's supposed to. Mike said something here. Well, I think the question here is, now you're onto something with that. I've thought about this before. I actually made a video about this and I pulled it down because I kind of got embarrassed about what I was talking about. And I shouldn't have been embarrassed about it. I should have let it ride and I should have let people talk about it. And there may have been something, and I kicked myself for not. It could have been a very, very strong video. I talked about being on a carnivorous diet. And if we know that science says we have to have bacteria in the small intestine and in large intestine, if we're not feeding that bacteria with certain types of foods that come from fibers from like garlic and asparagus and things like that, how do we feed the different intestinal tracts to keep up with the proper gut flora and bacteria? Theory is if you don't have the right balance, your large intestine will not be balanced and your small intestine will not be balanced. Why is that? Because bacteria will travel from the large into the small and overpopulate it. And what ends up happening is it's searching for food and it can't find the food. It can't find the bacteria that it wants. So if it can't find it, it's going to travel. And when it travels, it's going to start overpopulating in certain areas and it could lead to conditions like SIBO. Now, whether or not that's true 100%, I don't know that. I should have left that video up because I really did like a 20-minute segment on all the different types of things that can happen with your gut and how important it is, and how small intestinal bacterial overgrowth can happen because of the different types of fibers and stuff like that. Let's look here. So I think in some instances it may feel like being on a carnivorous diet can shrink that tract. Um, but I don't necessarily, sorry, I heard like a door or something opening up. I don't know that that's exactly the case, though. Let me look here. Come on now. Digestive system. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing here. I gotta go back. So the way I'm seeing it is trying to pull up the different types of so I'm trying to pull up the different types of sections of the intestine so I can look at exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, I got it. Stomach. The digestive system is made up of a gastrointestinal tract, also called the GI tract or digestive tract. The liver, pancreas, and gallbladder, the GI tract, is a series of hollow organs joined together. Twisting tube from mouth to anus. The hollow organs that make up the GI tract are the mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and anus. The liver, pancreas, gallbladder are solid organs of the digestive system. The small intestine has three parts. The first part is called the duodenum, the jejunum is in the middle, and the ileum is at the end. The large intestine includes an appendix, cecum, colon, and the rectum. The appendix is a finger-shaped pouch attached to the cecum. The cecum is the first part of the large intestine. The colon is the next. The rectum is at the end of the large intestine. What I'm looking at is how they were talking about the overgrowth coming from the large intestine because it doesn't have anything to feed. That's the last little bit of digestion that's going on and nutrient absorption that's going on before it's processed out. And what they're saying is if you don't have enough fiber, if you don't have enough good nutrients going in there to supply nutrients to both the large and small, it will feel like, actually I think now it's starting to make more sense. It'll almost seem like you have a shortened track because of the fact that there's nothing to populate um, the large intestine, and it all travels into the small intestine, and that's how you get that overgrowth. Now, to say that that is exactly what happens, I don't know. I mean, because I had blood in my stool, I was throwing up blood when I was on a ketogenic diet 2 different occasions, and I actually ended up in the hospital to the point where I couldn't move. So the carnivorous diet saved me. It allowed me to heal properly by eating carnivore food and not having any types of fibers and stuff that would cause flare-ups and stuff for me because of the amoebic dysentery um, that I acquired when I was in Iraq. and the carnivore diet actually allowed me to heal. So uh, I can't say that that's necessarily perfectly true for me. I cannot say that I feel like being on a carnivorous diet and not having types of fibers and different things from vegetables and fruits is making that specific condition an issue for me, because I go to the bathroom just fine. On carnivore, I'm going all the time. I mean, I go every single day. There was a period where, the first like 4 to 8 weeks it was all diarrhea, and then it became solid little bits of solid movement, and then it was like once every other day. But I was always able to go at least a little bit. And that's what a lot of people confuse is the the constipation and stuff on carnivore doesn't happen quite like people like to claim. It's just the fact that you don't have a lot of waste because you're not eating a lot of stuff that your body can't use. And some people adapt to the lifestyle very well. But I think as the carnivore movement continues and the ketogenic movement continues, we are all really starting to see that there is no specific diet that really benefits every single person uh, the most. Each one of us respond to diets differently. The only diet that I would never really tell somebody to go do is probably a fruitarian or vegan diet, just because I don't believe in that stuff, and I don't like the fact that you're eliminating the very thing that your body is built off of, and that's fatty acids and amino acids in the form of the most bioavailable, which is a carnivorous diet. I'm trying to see what Mike said. Eating too much fiber destroyed my gut, but maybe very little fruit might be okay. Yeah, same with me too. Carnivore fixed me. No, I quit with the throwing up blood and the blood in my stool. So that I'm very fortunate for. So now if I wanted to, I can go out with Ange or her family or something like that, and I can eat, other things that may not be part of a carnivorous diet, and I'm completely fine. Uh, so let's wrap this up. We've been on here for an hour and 20 minutes. I wanted to mainly talk. We kind of went all over the place here. So I wanted to mainly talk about insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and high fasting blood glucose. What you should take away from this is the most that you should get out of this whole entire thing is the fact that you want to reduce the amount of foods that increase your blood sugar and tax your insulin levels. So if that's cutting out sweet foods, sweet drinks, regardless if it's keto safe or not, no Zevia, no none of that stuff, just for a little bit of time, or give yourself a little bit of a break for it. Maybe do it every other day or every couple days, um, or completely, however you feel like you need to do it. But just do something different. Do something better than what you were doing before. And reduce the amount of foods that you eat that have carbs and sugar in it that can raise your glucose levels so you can give your body a break. Realize that if you are on a ketogenic diet and you get super, super strict and you do everything that you're supposed to do and everything is playing out perfect for you, and you make one mistake, one little mistake, it could be just 20 grams of extra sugar that you normally wouldn't have. Realize you can feel that effect for several days. It could be gone in 12 hours, it could be gone in 2 hours, or it could hang around for a couple days. So that's why I tell people to be really, really careful if they're going to start a ketogenic diet. There's nothing wrong with it. Make sure that you're going to start it and you're going to try to adhere to it the best that you can, because there are some downfalls. And one of the downfalls is the recovery time from making a mistake outside of eating keto foods. That's why I like carnivore. If I'm on a carnivorous diet and I'm consistently eating carnivore food, and say I have a keto fat bomb or something like that, I don't feel any effect. If I ate, just for talking purposes, a half of a little Suzy Q cake or something like that, standard American junk food, I almost have no ill effect. But if I'm on a ketogenic diet and I've got ketones pretty present in low blood sugar, and then all of a sudden I eat something like that little Suzy Q or something like that, and my blood sugar goes way up and my ketones drop and plummet way down, that's where that crash effect comes in. And that's where that feeling lethargic almost comes in for a small period of time, if not a couple days after making a mistake on a ketogenic diet. That's why you hear people talk so much on a ketogenic diet about feeling sick and lethargic after a cheat meal or something like that, or making an oopsie or whatever they call it, falling off the wagon. But you don't really hear people on a carnivore diet saying that too much. They're like, oh, I had some things that I probably shouldn't have, and I felt just a little bit off. But it was so easy to recover from that and just go right back in a carnivore and not have that crash and burn effect like you do on a keto diet. So we talked about a lot of stuff, and the person that I want to be helping over the next couple months or however long it takes, I don't know. I mean, hopefully just a few weeks, a couple months or something, and the blood sugar levels and insulin levels are right back down, and we can work on that fasting blood glucose and get it under control, and that A1C down from an 8 point, just 2 down low as we can possibly get it by the next checkup, so we can help her succeed and get that worrisome out of her head and start to get back to her, pull her back to center, so she can really focus on living her life without having to worry about uh, being diabetic and taking medicine and insulin injections every single day, because it could hit anybody at any time. So make sure you're doing the best that you can with what you got, and make the best choices. If you have any questions at all, anybody that's on here that you see can answer your questions. The people that have been on here talking all night are pretty smart people. So come to this channel, ask away. If we don't know the answer, we will find the answer. All these people, you see the little wrenches next to the names and stuff, those are my moderators of the channel. Those are people that have been following me for a long time, and I trust very, very much. And if you have any kind of questions at all, they'll try to get a hold of me, or you can ask any of us, and we'll try to get you the answer. But if you were to ask me, as this video is ending right now, 30 seconds, if you were to ask me, what would my diet choice be at the end of the day for the ultimate healing, the most effect that you can get, the most bioavailable healing, the fastest, I would tell you a carnivorous diet. And if you ask me what that entailed, I would tell you animal foods. Do your research. Water, salt, plenty of food, organs, meat, good quality natural fat, and heal. That's it. Now, if you want to add some cheese and sour cream and stuff like that in there, and heavy whipping cream to your black coffee, if you choose to do that, that's okay. It's not the best, but that's okay. A lot of us do it. I do. I can't say that I don't, because I do. Thank you for a wonderful hour and 27 minutes of hearing me ramble about everything that I could possibly think about while trying to stay on topic and not being very successful at it. And I hope you guys have a blessed night and a safe weekend. If you have any questions, message me. Thank you. I appreciate you. Bye bye, guys. Mike, if you need any help at all, get a hold of me. I'm on Facebook too. If you guys look underneath each one of my videos, you'll see the groups that I talk on, that I help people on and stuff as well. So if you want to get on Facebook, if you want to email me, whatever it is, feel free to do it too. It's going to be under each one of the videos. Come back in a few minutes after it loads and click the little down arrow underneath the video, and you'll see my information underneath there. Thanks, guys.